The best of Super Juniors has come to an end. We have a Dominion preview, Tanahashi's 10-point plan for turning New Japan around, plus your questions. This is Speaking of Strong Style. Welcome, everyone, to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm Steven Conway. That is Jeremy Finestone here with me. Of course, we are contributors to the Fight Game Media Network. We're going to be taking a look at all the events of this past week. We now have had the B Block finals, the semifinals, and we are up to the big Dominion card on Sunday. And, of course, a big press conference where all of the discussion points for Tanahashi's first 6 months of the year can be combed over. Boy, we have a lot of thoughts on Tanahashi's 10 points of to turn around New Japan. So, Jeremy, this is a big week. This is arguably the second or third biggest show of the year, depending where you want to put the G1 finals. And I can't say that I was all that into Dominion 100% until this past week. I think the couple of matches that they have added in the last few days has gotten me a little bit more ready for it. What are your thoughts going into this? Are you excited for this show? Super Juniors was great. Do you think Dominion's going to be able to continue it?
If you were saying on a scale of 1 to 10 how I'm feeling about Dominion, I'm probably at like a 7 to an 8.
Okay.
There's nothing blow away breakdown. I am ready for this. Hook it to my veins. The best of the Super Juniors finals are going to be tremendous. They are two of the best wrestlers in the world, and it's going to be a clinic. And they deserve to be in what the New Japan is billing as a double main event, even though they're getting the top billing on this card. I am pretty excited for it. I am more excited for what is going to be after Dominion. We're going to have the Forbidden Door stuff, which is getting a little bit exciting, but then we're going to get New Japan Soul, and then we're going to get the G1. And the second half of this year, I feel, is going to really lay out the future of New Japan a lot more than the first half of this year has.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I hope, what I'm hoping for is that there is a direction to it. And I think that that's what they were really struggling with the first part of this year, the first 3 months in particular, and even beyond that, just finding a direction, just deciding where they wanted to go. I'm not convinced that they were in consensus about all that. I think there seemed to be people behind the scenes pulling different directions. And I'm hoping that is dialed in now. And I think Dominion is the way you can really point the ship toward its destination. And certainly the G1 is a monster part of all that. But if they want to get to a good Wrestle Kingdom place, a good place where all the storylines start to go in, Dominion is where you really need to start heading that direction.
Yeah, fair credit. I think it started at the beginning of the best of the Super Juniors. I think when we had those first matches with DOUKI and Hiromu and the Night 2 matches, everything going on with those, that really felt like this promotion was energized and motivated to put out good work. And it's not a situation of we need to wait for the right moment to really show what we got. It's like, no, we got to do this now. And the urgency that I've been urging for a while just feels like it's there right now. And the best of the Super Juniors really led me to believe that we may perhaps be on a 2024 renaissance, at least a minor one, going into New Japan.
You certainly have been urging urgency. There's no question about that. You've been
I know. I mean, I'm talking about that word a lot, like harping on it. And it felt like there was some urgency to this tournament, like that they had to do something exciting and really pull out all the stops when we were getting to the near end of it, despite things going wrong with Francisco Akira not making it through. And, you can kind of read the tea leaves that these were always the two guys that were going to go to the end. But there's a real possibility that DOUKI slid into the DMs and opportunities by getting this. And, man, he made the most of his minutes as well.
He did, and it's very possible that Akira was going to be in there. But, the way they kind of booked it, I thought that they might have done TJP and Akira in the semifinals, for instance. That wouldn't have been the case. It would have been TJP and Ishimori anyway. So I wonder if Akira's job was to trip a show at the very end, and that would be his tournament victory, so to speak, his progression this year, his step forward would be beating the junior heavyweight champion last day.
Eventually too.
Right, exactly. That's what I mean. And it looks like that's not going to happen. But, you know, I don't think New Japan doubts Francesco Akira's talent. I certainly don't. I think he's going to be fine. And when he comes back and recovers, you can put him back in the mix for sure.
It is the minorest of course corrections to get back to where they need to go, if this is the direction they need to go. Minorest of course corrections.
Yeah. So we did have an excellent finish, and we're going to go over how the Best of the Super Juniors ended right here. And Colin, I'm glad to see Colin is here. Thank you for joining us. And Dunstan, we're going to get to your questions. Got a lot of them, and they're good ones. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. So we're going to go this. And Colin has a question, by the way, that I did want to address. He said, what is NJ Soul all about? New Japan Soul all about? Hadn't heard of it before earlier on. It's a new name for a big event. I know New Japan doesn't really do pay-per-views, so to speak, or PLEs, but it is a new big event. They haven't had one under that name before, but it's coming up next month, and that's going to be kind of the next stop, I think, for the IWGP title. That's my guess.
It is a long summer tour that is going to be basically the stop point between Forbidden Door and the Dominion stuff until you get to G1. And in order to make this a big deal, I think that there will be an IWGP title match near the end of this, but they can't announce it for reasons. But we'll get to that at a later point. Right now, though, New Japan Soul, they're looking to make this an important event.
And there are important events kind of coming every couple of weeks, basically, for the next couple of months. It's a busy schedule right now with some of these things. And Colin, is it a pay-per-view? Will it be on World? As far as I know, it's going to be on World. It's going to be treated similar to Dontaku and the Dominion shows or King of Pro Wrestling.
They're going to be Road to New Japan Souls all the way with some important matches along the way. And then July 5th, which is ironically like the 1-year anniversary of this Jon Moxley New Japan Strong Tour in Japan. For whatever reason, it'll be a year to the date almost of him coming in July 4th last year and running roughshod over Japan off and on throughout the year. So I don't know. I think that's interesting.
And it's in Sapporo.
Yep.
It's in Sapporo right there. So this is not a strong event in the United States that you got to pay extra for. It's a big show in Sapporo. So
the only thing that I think that is a pay-per-view event at this point is the El Desperado, the Death Bay Invitational.
It's the only one announced at the moment, although I'm sure there's going to be more. I'm very convinced.
I mean, the Capital Collision in August 30th, is most likely going to be a pay-per-view as well.
And we don't know about Fantastica Mania in San Jose, do we?
No, but it's 4 miles from my house, and I have my ticket for the bleachers.
Awesome. I think you're going to really love that when they get the CMLL.
I'm gonna have a blast. I saw a couple matches for CMLL New Japan adjacent that we'll talk about later on today, and I was almost upset that we're not getting those matches.
Yeah, some of the boys are going back to Arena Mexico. All right. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves on that. Let's talk about what we saw this past week. So we're going to have to back all the way up to last Friday, which we won't spend a ton of time on because that's almost a week ago. But on May 31st, Korakuen Hall, the Best of the Super Juniors B Block Finals took place. It took place in front of only about 1,170 people. They didn't sell out Korakuen Hall for either of the block finals, which I thought was interesting. You could see it in the bleachers. They just weren't full. The orange seats mostly were, but there were a few hundred empty spots. But B Block, the first match was Dragon Dia against Kushida. Now this one went about 8 minutes, and this was the consolation win that we predicted for Dragon Dia, that he would at least get one victory. And once Kushida was out of the running, he hit a jump start on Kushida, but Kushida took most of the match late. It was not a blowout, though. This wasn't a thing where Kushida beat him up, and then there was a surprise pin. It wasn't that. Kushida gave him quite a bit. Dia ended up hitting the DDT, Dragon Dia DDT, the DDT, which is kind of fun to say. And like I said, it was a consolation win for him. But I think he was an exciting guy. I think he did well in his matches. Of course, he just wasn't going to go over too many of the New Japan guys. And Kushida ended up with a strong performance in the tournament and 8 points. I thought this match did just what it was supposed to do, and a little pat on the butt for Dia to come in and put everybody else over as he gets a little showcase victory.
Yeah, this was an interesting match. Did you think it was at all interesting that you had Dragon Dia, who, like, you could argue is the time travel younger version of Kushida.
A little bit, yeah.
Even with the skateboard and everything, there's a lot of mirrors to this. And then
really
him getting the win over his older self. The whole thing is just kind of, there's a very interesting like subtext to that I don't think they're really going to explore, but it's a nice little rep for Dragon Dia to maybe inherit the gimmick a little bit more.
Kushida has always done that whole Back to the Future tie-in with the vest and the orange vest. And at one time, I think at Wrestle Kingdom, Taguchi even dressed up as Doc, the Doc Brown and all that. And so this was a very Back to the Future-y kind of full circle moment here, where he's actually gone back.
I don't want to say it's like a passing the torch of moment, but there's definitely like you're looking in the mirror in a lot of ways. Like Dragon Dia can see his future in Kushida. Kushida can see his past a little bit. And it was just kind of cool.
It is. I wouldn't mind seeing
also kind of cool.
I wouldn't mind seeing more of Dia in the future. I'm not, I mentioned that he made Hiromu look big, so he's a small guy. So it is an interesting thing. I mean, he's with DDT right now, which is part of this whole alliance. So maybe we'll see him in the future. But I enjoyed having him there.
He's young. He's got a lot of potential. I don't really expect to see him a whole lot in New Japan. It's not like
I think the All Together shows probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're not doing Kaito Kiyomiya and Keno in New Japan all the time. So it's not like we're going to get all these other guys that are even lower on the card coming over and doing the same thing. It doesn't work like that. So his contract, his work has got to be up with New Japan or with Noah or whatever when he's going to come to New Japan. And that could be years. But, man, he's got a lot of potential ahead of him.
And of course, he wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. It wasn't until Taguchi. Taguchi was back at commentary, by the way, and a nasty scar on his forehead. It looks like he took a really nasty spill, a rough accident for him. It was a bike accident that hurt him pretty bad. So,
wasn't he trying to avoid a dog?
Something like that, yeah, which is very Taguchi.
Like, thankful he's okay. Good man.
Yeah, and we saw Master Wato back on commentary too. So, of course, Wato won the tournament last year towards ACL, so he's rehabbing, and he was back. Taguchi back with the scar. So,
Wato with a little bit of charisma just sitting there. I don't know. I could just feel it. I'm like, hey, Wato, what up, man?
Hey, there you go. Best of the Super Junior B block match after that, Drill Maloney and Ninja Mac. Now, this was more of an angle than it was a match.
Drill Maloney had that charisma as well.
Maloney hit the Drilla Killa on the floor, and it looked murderous. And now I also went back and watched it, and he did it completely safely. As strong as he is.
Hold up. This whole angle was something. He came out there, and he basically gave the match away.
I was getting to that.
Okay.
I was getting to that.
You were going straight to the moves. And I was like,
no. I'm saying that the whole thing was an angle. So what instigated all this, I guess, from Maloney's character's mind, was that they came out. Maloney said, "We're both out of this. I don't want to wrestle unless it's important for something, and so I'm just going to forfeit and leave." But Ninja Mac says, "No." In classic babyface style, says the people deserve a match, doggone it, and we're going to give them a match. And so Maloney just says, "You're going to make me work? I'm going to pile drive your on the parquet floor of Corrigan Hall."
His ass.
So he destroyed him, and of course Max sold it beautifully, didn't budge for the 20 count. It was a count out victory where Maloney just left him laying and carried out and things. This felt I can see this being a setup for later, either on a Noah show or an all-together show where these guys run into each other again off of this. But they could always do that if they choose to. But in the meantime, this is just Maloney bullying around Ninja Mac right here and just being a heel.
This was free heat, man. Like, Ninja Mac had done their gig. They knew this was just to put Maloney over as a killer at the very end. He's like, I'm going to give you the night off. It's fine. You go. I'm tired. I'm done. And then the dude's like, no, let's have a fight. Like, fine. And then he just proceeds to destroy him. Like, if he was a babyface and this did it, he would have gotten the biggest reaction in the world. If, like, the heel tried to beg off, like, if the roles were reversed on this, he would have gotten a massive babyface reaction out of this. That was how weird it was to me, the way that they had him built up as such a killer. I don't expect Ninja Mac to get any revenge on this. You know, like Ninja Mac did not have the performance in this like show to make me think that they're going to continue with the plans with them to the point of Drill Money. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it'll happen in an all-together show where it's just kind of like, oh, I got my revenge for getting pile driven. But even what is it going to be? Is he going to pile drive Maloney into the ground?
Yeah, you know, might just have a match where he beats him. I mean, here's the thing with I just watched a Noah show now that I have my Wrestle Universe subscription because of Marty Gold, but I watched the Noah show recently from Cork and Hall, and the main thing was Keno and Minoru Suzuki, but underneath that they had Masa Kitamiya against Ishii again, and then they had LIJ in there. So you're seeing New Japan guys on some of these Noah shows. You're also seeing the War Dogs teaming up with segments of the heels in Noah as well. So I could definitely see this coming into a Noah match where Maloney and Connors team up with GLG and take on Hayata and not Hayata, excuse me, and Ninja Mac and some of the other baby faces. And you know, because they have been sprinkling New Japan talent in, and they don't have to, but it's an option now.
It is. I see Maloney at a different level than Ninja Mac. Like, they would never be in a match to me if it wasn't in the Best of the Super Juniors. And so I felt like it was definitive, but I would be very curious to see how they would continue with these two if they wanted to.
Up next, we had DOUKI and Robbie Eagles. Now, Robbie was, because tiebreakers, was already basically eliminated. Not basically, he was eliminated. He could not move on to the semifinals. DOUKI had to get a win, and then he needed a Hiromu loss in the main event. So the crowd sympathies were with DOUKI in this one, although they did do the Robbie thing just because any kind of call and answer thing gets over a little bit. But this was a DOUKI crowd. And DOUKI hit a tornado DDT from the ring to the floor as part of a tope suicida, which is a really cool move. He ended up doing it again in the semis. As long as you get it right, it looks pretty amazing. In the end, he got a day break for two, got some chokes. That put Robbie Eagles in real bad shape to set up his comeback. Really nice finishing sequence in this one where it's in and out of Ron Miller special attempts and Italian stretch, doki chokies. And finally, in part of that scramble, Robbie Eagles ended up in a perfect spot for a suplex de la Luna. First time he hit it all tournament, and got the win to a huge pop in this one. The crowd was very happy to see DOUKI at least in the running as they go into the main event. And as soon as he won, I figured he would. As I looked this over, I just thought, oh wow, this is going to be DOUKI and Ishimori, isn't it? Because it would have killed all the drama for him to have lost this to Robbie, because that would have left Ishimori and Takahashi as the only two. And so the main event wouldn't have really meant anything except seeding. And that's not the way New Japan does things. So I figured DOUKI was winning just to put some pressure on. And after that, I just thought, boy, it's going to really be a letdown if Hiromu wins and DOUKI doesn't go through. So, really good match. Again, like you said, the DOUKI was making the best of his minutes. This is another example. Robbie Eagles is fabulous. And he was excellent in putting DOUKI over in this thing and making it look like that Ron Miller special was going to get the job done. A lot of fun. Terrific match.
The one thing that you need to watch out for Robbie Eagles after all this is his slow mental breakdown. After the Hiromu match and after this, there's definitely something going on. And we need to see what happens when we move on to the New Japan Soul match that they're going to have. That's going to be a very interesting direction that I see with the potential that they have there. But the story of this match was absolutely DOUKI. Robbie Eagles did everything in his power to make DOUKI look fantastic. DOUKI did not have to do much to make himself look good. As I said before, we are huge DOUKI fans. And he has cemented himself as someone who was at the bottom of a division, a guy who was a perennial pin eater, in a lot of ways. And now I think we need to look at him as one of the cornerstones of the division, a guy who could win the title at any point.
Dunstan Williams says Robbie is a gem in that division. I absolutely agree. I think he's fabulous. And they said it's a legit shame his run as champion was during COVID. Yeah,
it's a robbery that he's not even around that much. Like he hasn't been around since before the Best of Super Junior. Like when was the last time we saw him?
He's a big part of the Tamashi stuff when they do go
Right.
there, but they don't run a ton of those shows. But he's a big part of it.
He's not in Japan nearly as much as he was like a couple of years ago, which it's a pleasure to see him in the ring.
Second half of the year, that might turn around because
I hope so.
There's little doubt that he'll be in Super Junior Tag with Fujita and all that stuff. So I think there'll be some things to come right there. He might even be the champions. Remember, the tag team titles bounce around like crazy, so that could happen. We'll talk about all that because they have a tag team title match coming up.
This was definitely a night of underdogs, wasn't it? Or near underdogs.
Yeah, it was. And then the main event was Ishimori against Takahashi. And this one went 20 minutes. And oh my God, I mean, what could go wrong with these two? And it was fantastic. It came down to a classic sequence of big moves and near falls. These were two experts showing up in a big match. Interesting thing that's been happening throughout this whole tournament is Ishimori has been speaking in religious terms, and not ironically. He seems like he is a pretty religious man. He's been talking, he ends his promos with the word grace and all that, and he kind of gives thanks to God and things in some ways in his post-match comments. And he has not been behaving like a heel in this at all. And I think there's a little bit of fire with that smoke finally, as we've been talking about for a long time. They ended up doing each other's finishers, which was a nice little touch in this late. Ishimori did manage to get the win with a Bloody Sunday and moved on. The crowd just loved this. And it was very exciting. And they decided to go with Ishimori, who did have, like I said, it was a very divided crowd. They would have been happy either way. He built up a lot of goodwill with the fans, both with his performances and then just the way he's acting. And they decided to go with him despite Hiromu kind of selling a lot of tickets lately. I was surprised, Jeremy, but I am not disappointed. I think Ishimori, I've been saying it for a long time, Ishimori is one of the very best in the world, a junior heavyweight or heavyweight. And I was very happy with this. It was a great match. He and Desperado are going to have a great main event. I mean, like I said, surprised, far from disappointed.
I wasn't necessarily surprised. Like Hiromu doesn't have anything to prove, and winning the best of the Super Juniors for him is almost counterproductive for the rest of the promotion. It's like if you go to him, you're just telling everyone it's more of the same for the next year.
Well, I agree with you. Here was my point on that. I didn't think he was going to win. But I did think that he would I thought he was going to be the one to put Desperado over in the finals. But that was just my point on that. But you can always do that.
Interesting, though, because you go into Dominion 2 days, even earlier, knowing, whoa, Hiromu's not even in the card for this. What is going to happen next? It gets you to want to watch those two matches in which the finals could be. And then it gets you to want to watch the finals. If you know Hiromu's in there, are you going to watch thinking, oh, okay, Hiromu is going to end up, and maybe you just skip it and you wait and you find out a day or two. No, I'm talking about like the people who are not half in and half out of New Japan, like realistically speaking, like thinking about how like the logistics of this would work. If you have 4 completely new people going into post-block play, it increases the opportunity of more eyes on more shows rather than having Hiromu go in there after so many years of being a guaranteed winner. Yeah. And it just it changes the dynamic of the perception of the tournament. It tells you going into it, there is absolutely going to be a fresh new winner. It is not going to be Hiromu. For the people who are watching this for a long time, that is a huge reward. For people who are checking in and out, it just tells you like, hey, you're watching somebody get made. And that's really cool.
Tyler Murin is here. Hi, Tyler. Glad to see you. He said, I haven't seen Ishimori wrestle a match like that in a long time. Well, he's been having great matches for a while, but yeah, to see it on that stage with that level of importance, that sort of hype to it, I thought was very refreshing. And of course, he had that cursed run where he was the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion and could not get an opponent in the ring for the poor guy. Something happened to his opponent every time a match was scheduled. And so to see him back here, I think is great. And he is absolutely behaving like a babyface because he did not do any heel things. He did a couple of little snide remarks about the crowd in his backstage comments, but very little and no interference and things. This is just Ishimori in a way that the crowd can truly get behind. And if anything, I hope this is a little bit of a, because he's kind of a no man's land in Bullet Club anyway right now. He's not a war dog. He's not House of Torture. I think it's a signal maybe to New Japan that, that I think there's a babyface running this dude. I think there is. And I think the crowd would be there for it. I've been advocating a new coat of paint for Ishimori for a long time. And I think that this is an opportunity.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. There is a chance for him to be a bigger star than he is already, and as a babyface. I do wonder though, because it would definitely upset the balance of who's a babyface and who's a heel in the junior heavyweight division. But there's a lot of people that you can look at right now and think it is easy to just pivot that one over and move this guy over to the other side. So I think I'm with you. I would not rule out the Ishimori top star kind of approach.
Yeah, and again, a guy who's around 40 years old, and that's you don't have all the years left with him. Although he's in better shape than most. Like, of course, he injured himself last Best of the Super Juniors and had to be taken out of that match with Hiromu. So
that's a nice little story for him as well. You know, missing the end of last year and then coming back and making it to the finals this year. They definitely tried to hammer that in the commentary.
So we moved on to Monday. That was June 3rd at Korakuen. Now this time they were packed. It was sold out, 1,483. And
fun crowd.
Yeah, it was. And it was a show that set up a lot of things for Dominion. So we'll go over some of these. Not all the matches had to do with it, but Blake Christian, Hayata, and Ninja Mac defeated Knight, Kushida, and Shoma Kato in the opening. Of course, Hayata got the submission on Shoma Kato right there. Quick thing, good action all around for an opener, though. It was fast, the blink and you'll miss it type of stuff. But everyone showed a little bit, and it was fun.
Yeah, I had nothing much to say to that other than it was just like, hey guys, thanks for doing a great job with the Best of Super Juniors. Here's your piece and you're gone, and you know everyone has a little bit of shine to go. I thought Blake Christian and Kevin Knight really outdid themselves, and Hayata as well. Throughout the tournament, and this was a nice little capper for their tour.
After that, we had TMDK against the War Dogs. So this is Fujita, Eagles, and Sabre, and this was another match that was more of an angle than a match. And this was against Connors, Maloney, and Geto. Now, whenever you see this lineup, you're saying, oh, Ghetto's going to do the job for somebody. But instead, they bamboozled us. They did a very quick one again. This was only 1 minute and 7 seconds before they even had a chance to get to their corners for a tag. As everyone fought around the outside because it's, the War Dogs and they attacked before and all that. Fujita just simply got Connors in the ring, gave him an O'Connor roll with a bridge and won it. So Fujita snuck another one in on Clark Connors with the idea that Fujita and Robbie Eagles are the new top contenders for the junior heavyweight tag team titles. We found out later that match will indeed be happening at NJPW Seoul. The War Dogs attacked after, but TMDK rallied, and in the end, all three of TMDK's guys had some sort of a submission on them, and everyone was tapping out, and Geto was getting his beard pulled by Zach and twisted into shape. So just the good guys winning here in the end to make TMDK look like a threat for those junior tag titles.
So you're telling me the story right now is that Fujita can't stop winning, and then Robbie Eagles can't stop losing?
It's an interesting dynamic.
I'm just saying. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that one turns out at Seoul right there. It could be a thing where we'll get to that as we preview it. With those belts, they change hands all the time. So that could really be a coin flip as to whether or not
these guys are all fun, I really enjoy Connors and Maloney together. I enjoy Fujita. I enjoy 5 of the 6 guys, and Geto did his part just fine. Like, I don't need to come in here and sing the praises of Geto. Geto knows what he needs to do. But the other 5 guys, I find an utter joy to be in the ring, and this was no exception.
The next match was just a very straightforward affair. Great-O-Khan and Jeff Cobb against Takumi Shinoku and Yuya Uemura. So this was a preview of the King of Pro Wrestling match that we'll be talking about in the Dominion preview. The only other bit of spice they added to this one, it was a Tour of the Islands finish, about as basic as you get. Jeff Cobb on Taka. Some entertaining stuff with Taka trying to chop down the redwood tree that is Jeff Cobb and failing before he got the tour. But Ishii came down to ringside in street clothes and just stared down Jeff Cobb, which was its own kind of intriguing. There's some kind of real charisma to Ishii. And when I saw this, I had just watched that Noah show where he and Kitamiya beat the living snot out of each other. So I was on the Ishii bus anyway, which I'm always am. But seeing him there with Cobb after watching that Kitamiya match, which we're getting again all together, I think this TV title match, I'm there for it. And the King of Pro Wrestling title match between Okan and Uemura will be at Dominion.
I keep just thinking that the dream is the meaty man matches with Jeff Cobb. And boy, I think this Ishii match is going to be something. And I'm just, when he picked up Taka Michinoku and just gave him the tour of the islands just off of the ground, I was going, oh.
Yeah.
Just watching Cobb manhandle Taka like a rag doll is worth the price of admission for New Japan World for this month.
Jeff Cobb doing Jeff Cobb things. After that, we had LIJ. This was an 8-person tag: Bushi, Hiromu, Titan, and Yota Tsuji against Dragon Dia, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Oleg Boltin, and Toru Yano. So you have the trios champions in there. And in the end, Tsuji ended up beating Yano with the Marlowe crash. So that's the thing where he does kind of the stomp off the rope onto so a bit of a curb stomp, a super curb stomp, avalanche curb stomp, if you will. Anyway, this led to backstage comments in which LIJ just said, hey, wait a minute. Those guys are the Never Openweight 6-man champions, and there are 3 of us. Titan's going back to Mexico, so why don't we challenge them for it? And indeed, that is what is happening. So just a very basic, champions get pinned, therefore they have to put the belts up. Tanahashi, Boltin, and Yano will be facing Tsuji, Hiromu, and Bushi at Dominion. And as far as this one goes, this was all in the service of that. Everyone got a little bit of shine, and then the potential challengers got the win.
I'm not opposed to this matchup. It's like that is a fine place for Hiromu to be on the Dominion card, and I think that there is a lot of potential for the match to really slap. So definitely here for that one. Definitely here for that. I feel like the next 3 matches just kind of set up a lot for Dominion. Like this one all the way through the Best of Super Juniors finals. So let's get to it.
The next one was Shingo Takagi and Tetsuya Naito, and they faced Callum Newman and HENARE. Now, you don't need to sell us any more on Shingo Takagi versus HENARE. We know that's going to be great. But in the end, Naito won with the Destino on Callum Newman. But the Newman-Naito stuff took as much of the stage as the Takagi, the HENARE stuff. So I was watching this and I thought, well, this is actually pretty interesting. I thought they would have focused on the Never title match. And in the end, Naito spit at Newman, doing what he does after he beat him with the Destino. Newman spit right back at him. Naito gave him a look like, it's not bad, this kid. I kind of like him. So they will be having a singles match as Newman got in his face and challenged him. Opening match on the card at Dominion. And this set that up as well as giving us a little taste test of HENARE and Takagi, which we already know is a great match.
Teaser, folks, I am ready to go with my Dominion talk about all of this because it feels like everything is lining up the way I've been saying for months now. So a little bit of there, like get yourself comfortable because once we get to that Dominion preview, I am lighting up into all of this and it is going to be delightful.
Well, there you go. So we'll take a look at that one as it comes up for the Dominion preview.
Now, one, why don't you take a breath real quick and take a break? I'm going to talk about this one, this match. So we have the House of Torture come out, and they're doing their total House of Torture shtick. And then Shota Umino comes out, and this is at Corkin Hall. And so they got that ramp on the stairwell on one side. He comes out there with his microphone, and he's ready to go. And then Moxley comes out on the Videotron. And he proceeds to have a speech. Now, I know, Steven, you have everything that he said written down, so I have queued you up to talk about the Moxley, what he said, and go from there.
Well, what he said basically was, you assume that Shota is my only friend. That was something that Evil and the rest of them just said over and over again. You only have one guy that you like. They said, well, what you guys did is an affront to a title that I hold very dear to my heart, that I have a lot of respect for, the IWGP title. But you defaced it. You painted it. You have mocked it. You've treated it like a product. He has his own little replica belt out there where he's just kind of being a pain in the ass. And he said, the thing is, a lot of people put their blood, sweat, and tears into making that title something. And the third generation is sick and tired of it. And that's who our help is. So when Shota Umino came out by himself, he was joined in the orange seats by Togi Makabe, Tiger Mask, Tenzan, and Nagata. Yuji Nagata got a big pop out of this.
The place went wild.
The crowd seemed to really like this. So it was a mystery partner situation. They didn't say who any of his partners were. And there was a real buzz in the crowd for this. And again, mostly for Nagata, who is still taken very seriously by New Japan. They don't job him out. He doesn't always win, but they don't job him out the way they do the others. So this felt like a kind of Avengers Assemble moment right there. There's not a whole lot left to Hiroshi Tenzan. His body is just, he's had nerve damage. He doesn't move well. It's tough to watch in a way. Tiger Mask is still a very capable wrestler. Makabe is still Makabe, and he can still go. And Nagata, I mean, not too long ago, I believe Nagata was the Triple Crown champion in All Japan within the last year. So this is somebody who can still wrestle at a very high level. They don't make Nagata look like a chump very often at all. He will put heels over, but they don't make him look like a chump. So having Nagata out there lent this a little bit of gravitas. I don't think it would have had with anybody else. And in the end, Umino beat Togo with the Death Rider. They isolated Dick Togo and beat him. And then the point of this, though, is that the match at Dominion will now be an anything goes lumberjack match. And
Lumberjack
so it'll
Death,
be
because in Japan, it's not just lumberjack, it's Lumberjack Death.
Well, of course, you got to throw that one in. But it is a thing now where House of Torture has the team going up against it. Is the whole point, is that they are not outnumbered in this case. They actually have the numbers to match. So we will see how all of that plays out. There have been some comments and foreshadowing recently that makes me think that this could be going a certain direction. We'll get to at the Dominion preview that could have serious repercussions for House of Torture and the company going forward. And I think that this is all part of it. So, but this was satisfying, and I was really happy, Jeremy, with just how much the crowd went crazy for these guys. It was a little startling to me anyway. I was like, oh, wow.
When you talk about moments that are just kind of like, you were not expecting it, but they were kind of special, this was a really special moment. You know, like the crowd buzzed, and then he started bringing it like Moxley did his third generation speech. The crowd like got legitimately excited. They're like, oh, like they weren't expecting it. And I wasn't expecting it either, to be perfectly honest. And so when the O's came out, and we're talking about a standing room only Corkin, this crowd went nuts. They were just like, yeah, let's do this. And then, you know, there was no messing around. House of Torture got their asses handed to them in a relatively short order. Like there was no ambiguity about who was going to win this match. It didn't do much to really put the faces in peril, if you know what I mean. So, look, Moxley ain't losing this match. I don't think it's just the third generation. Probably going to get some Hontai people out there. You know, it's like, you know, this is going to be the House of Torture is going to get their set bag packing kind of night. And, it's not going to be a live show review of Dominion that we're going to have, in which we're going to be talking a whole lot about Evil's new dominance in House of Torture.
Yeah, that's true. We are going to do that, by the way. That's going to be 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. on Sunday. We'll have a live show here where we talk about Dominion and the fallout from it, and that'll be right here on our usual YouTube feed. And for those of you who are listening as a podcast, it'll be up later that night as a podcast as well. So we will have full coverage of Dominion here as we come toward the big show. After that, it was time for the semifinals. We had Taiji Ishimori against TJP. This one went almost 20 minutes, but it breezed by. Crowd was actually divided on this. I mean, the Japanese crowds, in New Japan in particular, are always into the guy pulling himself up by the bootstraps and rallying to make the tournament final or the semifinals. They love that story where you lose your first couple and then have that drive to the finish right there. TJP gave them that. And, of course, they've been into Ishimori the whole time. TJP took a nasty bump from the top rope to the apron right on his neck, but thankfully was okay. And when the submissions and the big moves piled up, this crowd was into it. This was a loud crowd. They were enthusiastic about this show. TJP hit a Mamba splash for 2, got the Pinoy stretch, had the crowd in the palm of their hand for that whole thing. He even put Ishimori in a bone lock, but that was his downfall. It was reversed, and he ended up in the bone lock himself. Taiji Ishimori rallied, hit a reverse bloody cross, and then the regular bloody cross to win. So good. Really excellent match. And in the end, I think the TJP acquitted himself very well in this tournament. Ishimori was on fire all the way. He's got the people. He's in the finals. He's in the main event of Dominion. Taiji Ishimori, I'm so happy for him.
I'm really happy. I thought we talked last week about there were 5 matches that you should go out of your way to see. Throw this in there. Yeah. This and the next match were both like classics, all-timers, best matches of 2024. That's the conversation that we're having here. I wonder if the story with TJP may end up being that until he commits to junior or heavyweight, like he's not going to have success in either. You know, it's like it may just be a commitment kind of thing. And I don't know if that's the case, but it sure feels like close but no cigar is his thing.
I'll say this about TJP. With his backstage comments, he feels more like a leader than he did a month ago. And the way he's presenting himself back there, because he's talking about his goals, but not only his goals. He has made sure in those backstage comments to talk about how Jeff Cobb's the TV champion. Yes. I believe in the Great O'Khan that he's going to get the KOPW back. And then he will grab Callum Newman by the ears, basically, and just say, we are going to get you into the G1. He's talking like a leader in that sense. So he's putting over the idea that he's the captain. They're not arguing about it. I think they're going with this for now. Now we'll see where this story, I don't think this is the end of the story, but for right now, I think United Empire might be thinking, okay, let's see where TJP can take us. And he's doing his part. He's doing his part.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I am curious where this is going because this is not a typical story in pro wrestling. And I feel like they're trying something different with TJP. And I'm curious, you know, it's like you can't put parts of other wrestling angles that you've seen before and like say, hey, this is what they're doing with TJP. They're just doing something completely different with them. And I've kind of just made my peace of saying like, okay, let's just see where this is going.
And after that, we had to figure out who he was going to be facing Ishimori in the finals there. It was El Desperado and DOUKI, 22 minutes, 28 seconds. A lot of backstory with these two, because remember, the whole point of DOUKI the whole reason DOUKI got into New Japan was because Desperado broke his jaw, what was it, 5 or 6 years ago. And they reminded me who did it. Do you remember, Jeremy? Did you hear Chris Charlton mention who actually broke Despi's jaw?
I don't remember who did say.
It's Jun Kasai. Oh.
I think they mentioned it last year in the run-ups to all that.
Yeah.
So I should remember that.
He's the guy that busted him in the jaw. So it all comes around, I tell you. So DOUKI, of course, DOUKI was brought in as a late replacement in the Super Juniors for Despe. So a lot of submission work on DOUKI's knees in this one early on. And this was a match where and then DOUKI, of course, made his comeback. There was a rally and the big moves and things. DOUKI got a boost just by making the semifinals, getting out of block play. It's a big deal in this company, and they treat it like it's a big deal. They it does move people up a little bit when they make the semifinals or the finals of these tournaments. So that was DOUKI's victory. To me, he was playing with house money. He can lose this match, and he's already further ahead than he was, like we discussed earlier. So in this point, Desperado just felt like the sentimental favorite here. The crowd was into both guys, though. So DOUKI didn't need to win, but he needed a good performance, and he definitely got it. The build led to 2 Pinche Locos to finally win. It's a fantastic match. Go back and watch this match. It's excellent. And it was just this thing where both guys came out of it in better shape. Desperado, 2 sentimental favorites in the finals, Ishimori and Despe. I mean, the crowd can talk. You can talk yourself into either one of these guys, rooting for either one of these guys. TJP had his story about rallying from being down early and then getting there. And then you had DOUKI reaching his highest level thus far in his career. This was the rare instance when all 4 semifinalists came out of this in a better spot than when they went in. That's pretty good booking in a year when not all the booking's been great. They really showed up and put together an excellent tournament here and helped this division a lot, I think.
everything fell into place is the best way I can put it. And I think you're right. DOUKI didn't need to win this year, but you come away knowing that his day is coming. And for a guy that the way that you said it last year, him toiling in Mexico on the independent scene and then just getting his opportunity, I'm just really happy to see it. Like, there are people that you watch that you are like on the ground floor of watching in New Japan. And he is one of those guys where you watched him eat pins for years, but you knew he was good. And then like he got opportunities and all of a sudden like he would win a little bit more. And you're like, oh, you know, like you kind of have those moments. And this has been so organic with DOUKI over the last 5 years that he really had to come up in the last year when he joined just 5 guys. And he had an opportunity to be like the front man of the junior heavyweight division for that stable. I think that was the moment. And he's done a fantastic job. And I just can't say enough about it.
Tyler mentions my biggest issue was knowing the Invitational was around the corner. It would have been weird to have the guy who lost have a pay-per-view named after him.
I don't know for sure he's still winning this thing, guys.
Well, you know, it's an interesting thought. The thing is with Desperado is this is starting to become his thing. Remember the match with Moxley, the tag with Jun Kasai last year, the coming up with something around the late June or June 4th of July-ish time. That seems to be one of Despe's. He's starting a tradition.
Show. He's incredibly popular.
Yeah,
like he's so popular over there.
Yeah, he really is. And it was really cool. It was just a really enjoyable night of wrestling right there. That was fun. And again, Ishimori came out afterwards for the stare down, but no heel mannerisms at all. Didn't attack him. They just squared off. And so looking at this, we'll get into our Dominion preview next, but I think some big changes are coming in that division. And boy, it's been really helped. So that does bring us to Dominion here, Jeremy. It's Sunday, June 9th, Osaka-jo Hall, and we're coming up on it. That's the next show. There isn't anything between then and now. And I think we should just go right to the preview, don't you?
There's one thing between then and now. Do you mind?
No, please.
It's called the live read. We are members of the Fight Game Media Network. You can find a selection of our shows on audio podcast catchers with shows that include The Wrap, The Dynamite Show, The 5-Star Joshi Show, Popcorn and Pile Drivers, and various newsworthy pay-per-view and PLE recaps for WWE, AEW, and New Japan as provided by yours truly on Speaking of Strong Style. Please like and give us 5 stars to increase our presence in audio. We also have a YouTube channel that succeeds more and more from the feedback you provide. So if you like what we do here live on Strong Style every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, Power Bomb shows every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, the Dynamite show immediately following every AEW Dynamite, the 5-Star Joshi show on Thursdays and Fridays every week, and live presentations of pay-per-view and PLE recaps. You can subscribe if you're listening for the first time, or just hit that like button for the show to pop up again until you're sure we're the team for you. We thank you for every minute you spend with us. We hope you enjoyed as much as we enjoy the time with you. Steven, the live read is over and it's back to you.
That was beautiful. Boy, you really killed that one. That was terrific.
Thanks, man. I rewrote it a little bit. I was like, I should probably tweak this one a little bit.
So we're kicking off Dominion with the special singles match that came up just the other night, and that is Tetsuya Naito against Callum Newman. So this, to me, Jeremy, smells like something that New Japan likes to do, which is to have a special singles match early in the show so that the winner of that match just might be in position to walk out and challenge the IWGP champion afterwards.
You don't say. It feels like I've been thinking this might possibly happen for, I don't know, ever since Chicago.
Yeah.
I was more than pleased when I saw this match was announced at the beginning of the show. If you remember, there was something very similar at the Dontaku with EVIL coming out at the very beginning and the very end. So if you could read between the lines, it seems like Naito may in fact be the next guy up for Moxley.
Okay. I think so too. By the way, this is probably going to be a really good match.
Oh, I think it's going to be absolutely tremendous.
Yeah. Callum Newman's really excellent. And I like the fact that he has bulked up a little bit too. And, that I think that has helped him. And he kept the speed somehow, despite bulking up a little bit, and he's looking good. After this, we have another preview of that NJPW Soul title match here. So this is going to be close. I'm sorry?
This caught me off guard. I thought we'd get the title match here.
No, we're going to do it for Soul. Fujita, Eagles, and Zack Sabre Jr. against LJ Cleary from Noah. Again, this is what I'm talking about, where GLG and the War Dogs kind of are working together a little bit. Bullet Club, of course, Jake Lee has been in alliance with him and things. So he's joining Drilla Maloney and Clark Connors. So a little bit of Noah presence on the show. And again, it's another chance for TMDK to stamp their put their mark, I guess, on those titles and shore up their title shot. Although I got to feel that if TMDK wins over the War Dogs in the Super Junior Tournament singles matches, then beats them in a quick show or a quick match at Korakuen Hall, and then wins this one at Dominion, that it doesn't really speak much to their chances of actually winning the titles, because you got to give the War Dogs something. But this will tell us a little bit about what they're thinking. If
Robbie Eagles or LJ Cleary lose this match, I will not be surprised in any way, shape, or form. Leave it at that.
Yeah, because I
am looking forward to this, because, like I said, 5 of those guys in the previous match totally do it. The only thing that switched out is Ghetto, LJ Cleary, and Ghetto from the last match that we thoroughly enjoyed. So this is gonna be fine. It's gonna be great.
After that comes the King of Pro Wrestling title match between Yuya Uemura and the Great Okan. So we have our stipulations for this, Jeremy, and this is the Storm Catch Rules match. It won with 58% of the vote versus a classic 2 out of 3 from which was Okan's offering. This match will be contested.
So this is Lance Storm rules?
Yes, the Lance Storm Catch rules. A 15-minute time limit is in place. Each competitor gets 2 rope breaks, after which breaking at the ropes or leaving the ring will be a disqualification. So that's a little bit of a twist. So almost ROH pure match, with a little bit of the twist in there that even if you so much as touch the ropes or slide out of the ring, you are DQ'd. And that's going to be our KOPW stipulation match. Again, Great Okan has kind of defined himself by this title lately and still says he wants to do the rural revitalization. Do you see him winning this thing back, or do you think this is Uemura's first defense?
I think this is Uemura's time to shine. As much as we love the Great Okan experiment, I think the Great Okan experiment has basically yielded the results that we know we're going to get from here on out. And I think the potential for Yuya Uemura to exceed that early on is a greater value than perhaps going back to Great Okan, or even using Great Okan to elevate Uemura in some kind of chase. This is just like, get it over with, make it definitive, and onward and upward for young Yuya.
I think Uemura's King of Pro Wrestling title reign, if it continues past Dominion, so if he wins this match, could last a minute, because there's a couple things said during Tanahashi's press conference that leads me to think that that whoever comes out of Dominion with this title, it's going to matter. It's going to hold on to it for a while, because he's going to get into a little bit about how they want to define their belts, which would be helpful. So anyway, could mean a lot. Number 4, the Never Openweight 6-man tag title. So this is Oleg Boltin, Toru Yano, and Hiroshi Tanahashi against Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, and Yota Tsuji. Now, the Never Openweight 6-man titles it's another title that can bounce around as much as they need it to. They could put it on LIJ here. It could go either way. It's not the most consequence in the world. So, but I am interested in seeing the match. I think it's a curious matchup, and I'm curious to see what Boltin does here. We know we can throw any of these guys around. So where do you think this is leading? I'm halfway leaning toward a retention here, that maybe Boltin gets a hold of Bushi or something like that. But really, even beating Bushi would be a pretty big win for Oleg. Really, it would be. As a guy who's a main roster guy, he's not protected, grant you, but nevertheless, the idea of a guy in the black boots and black tights pinning Bushi, it just shows that they're thinking big things for him. But they could also put it on LIJ without much trouble.
This Never Openweight 6-man match could legitimately go either way. First off, this is the first title defense since they won it, I think, in the Wrestling World event back in April. right? Like they won the titles in that 6-man tournament. They haven't defended the title once since then.
I think they did, didn't they? Didn't they have a title? I thought they had one. I think
Maybe
they had one title defense. I think they have a defense.
But you could go either way. Honestly, I could see LIJ winning it, but I don't think so.
Yes, they won the tournament, and then they just had a straight up defense against the House of Torture.
Okay. Before House of Torture went hot and mean on everything else that went on in New Japan. Okay, so Dominion is interesting for the Bullet Club, even though there's no Finlay because he's off for the birth of his child right now. That means he doesn't have a match. If there is a Bullet Club development, it might likely happen at Dominion because Gabe Kidd and Alex Coughlin debuted last year at Dominion as one of the War Dogs. I've been talking a long time. Bolton Oleg could be one of those guys that joins the War Dogs. This could be the angle. This could be the moment. I don't know. I'm just saying. It's entirely possible. If not, title defense, we go back to normal, and all's right in the world, or maybe all's right in the world if we get a new member of Bullet Club tonight. Those are the two things that I think that could go either way in this.
Match number 5 is going to be fantastic. It is very simply TV title on the line. Jeff Cobb, Tomohiro Ishii. Again, you don't need a whole lot to sell this one. This is the right time limit for this one too, because they can just go full on into each other, and they have an excuse to just go full bore into each other, like the two Rams battling for territory. It feels like a title retention, but it'll be a great match.
When you wake up on Sunday morning and you have New Japan World, you should turn it on. You should see if the show is in fact concluded. And if you don't have interest in watching the entire card, you should immediately go and watch the 15 minutes of carnage that will be Jeff Cobb and Tomohiro Ishii as they beat the holy hell out of each other. And we all talk about how great it is on 5:30 p.m. Eastern on Speaking of Strong Style here on YouTube. That is my recommendation to you because we will be talking about the greatness of Jeff Cobb and Tomohiro Ishii, and we invite you to join us for that.
Tyler's wondering if Blake Christian might become the War Dog. You know, we feel like there's going to be some addition to the team somewhere along the line. Blake Christian's an interesting one. Of course, there's been that flirtation with Kevin Knight between Clark Connors and Knight about, you know, I hear you, I see you type of stuff. You and I suppose that the Knight thing was misdirection from who's actually going to join. And Christian might be a good call on that. Not a heavyweight, which is what Coughlin was.
Yeah, that's the thing is.
But it could be.
Coughlin. We need a heavyweight. We need a heavyweight in that spot.
My question is this: if you brought Christian in, could Maloney, you know, eat a sandwich and pop up to the heavyweight division?
I would rather have Connors or Maloney move up and have Christian stay down there, but I don't. But you've already established Connors and Maloney as the force to be reckoned with in the junior heavyweight division. It's much better to find a guy to plug in as a heavyweight, because why would Bullet Club recruit a junior heavyweight to be one of their War Dogs when they're looking for like a world beater? It doesn't like maybe they're finding the best person for the job, but the best person for the job isn't going to be the smallest guy in the room. It's going to be the biggest, scariest monster they can find. That's just the kind of mentality that I'm thinking of here.
Okay, fair enough. We'll see how it turns out. Next up, we will have the combining, once again, it seems like it's an annual event of the IWGP.
For the whole screen so you can see it for yourself.
And it's all in its majesty. The IWGP and Strong Tag Team Title Elimination Match. So it is an elimination match, not first fall wins. 3 of these teams are going to have to lose. So we have Bishamon, that's Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto. You have the GOD team of El Phantasmo and Hikuleo. I haven't seen those guys in a while. Bishamon were out in Australia for a while. Kenta and Chase Owens, and then TMDK, Mikey Nichols and Shane Haste, who, Jeremy, I had as the favorites in this one until I found out that Haste's contract situation is a little bit up in the air. So
that seems like a clever plant.
That doesn't necessarily mean anything. Keep in mind, there have been people that aren't. You're wondering, gee, would they ever put the title on someone who's not an NJPW wrestler? Well, sure, shit, they will. They have no compunction about that. So it does not disqualify TMDK from winning this match, but it is an extra wrinkle in your thinking right there. But once again, you know, these tag team titles, they come together, they break apart, they come together, they break apart. It's like a Taylor Swift album in a tag team title situation.
Okay. I am super interested in this match. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think it's going to be chaos, and I think we're going to be talking about how much fun we had for 13 minutes watching this match. I also think that the Shane Haste plug about his contract is complete and utterly hilarious. Let's think about this for 1 second. Let's look at this entire group of 8 people.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
One company belongs to one of these guys.
Yep. That's exactly what I was thinking. If one of these guys is not here by the time G1 rolls around, I don't think Shane Haste is going to be the one.
WWE is only going to want Hikuleo. Shane Haste making his contract known that it's coming up, that's fantastic. Shane Haste was also Slapjack in Retribution in WWE. Mikey Nichols,
TMDK was there. Yeah, they were.
Mikey
I was going to say
they were in because they wanted to be. He wanted out of his contract, and he used the excuse of being closer to his family to get out of there. Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto aren't going anywhere. ELP might have an opportunity in AEW, but I don't necessarily think that he is going to be one that's going to either AEW or WWE. With the amount of talent at the top, he has a much better opportunity at success in AEW right now. And then Kenta and Chase Owens, been there. We all know, like, this is not going to happen. It is a completely open field. I do think that TMDK win the tag titles here, winner take all. And with the new rules, how the titles are going to be defended, I think it'll be a very interesting layout going forward.
And I'm looking at this, and right now we don't know what the junior tag title situation is going to be on that. But coming into Dominion, Zach doesn't have a belt, and Fujita doesn't have a belt. You know, there's not gold in TMDK right now, and they like to keep those spread out a little bit. So I'm leaning that direction as well, is what I'm saying. I'm leaning that direction.
Like, it is clever gamesmanship of using Fightful and that kind of information. But I say this sometimes, news and noise, I feel like it's more noise than news.
You can't rule out Bishamon, though, because that's a safety blanket tag team for him. After that, we will have the NEVER Openweight title match. Shingo Takagi and HENARE. We've talked about this. I mean, barring an early injury, this can't go wrong. These are two great guys who really work well together.
Why do you even got to say that? Why do you even have to say barring an early injury?
I'm just saying that this match is about as close to a sure thing as you can get. I think HENARE could and maybe should win this thing.
I'm with you. I think that, okay, Shingo needs to be main event level beyond the NEVER Openweight title. He's had this thing, I think, maybe 5 times in the last year and a half. He's won it over and over and over and lost and won it and lost and over. HENARE's time. He has shown himself above and beyond with this company, and I think a lot of people will be surprised if he ended up winning this title here. I think we are looking for a fantastic match. Shingo being a main event player and HENARE being elevated to the next level, especially with that absence at the top with United Empire.
I saw these guys in Las Vegas, and this was the thing in Las Vegas. And I'll say this, the match was fantastic. Loved it. The other thing I will say about HENARE is I have seen few guys, not zero, but few guys better with fans than HENARE was at the merch table, just hanging around the casino in Vegas afterwards.
Like he's a politician.
Gregarious, engaging with fans, not just kind of just saying, oh, thanks for coming and signing an autograph, but talking to them, chatting back and forth about things. Guy's good. The guy's good, and he just seems like a fun hang. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like he just has this orbit around him that you just think that would be a fun guy to be around.
People gravitate towards him.
When he was hurt that badly in that cage match, I really worried for him. And to see him back, not only back fully, but in this kind of prominent role, I mean, I think it's time to roll with the dude. And Shingo doesn't need the help. You know, he's going to be a contender in the G1. You know, he's going to be not the favorite, but he's a contender.
If you take the NEVER Openweight title off of Shingo before the G1, more people will think he will win it.
That's a pretty good point, actually. That's a really smart point. And Dunstan mentions that this he thinks it's going to equal the match of the night. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this. Yeah. This or the main event. Yeah, I think it's definitely.
Or Ishii and Cobb, but there are people that are going to beat the holy hell out of each other on this show.
Yeah.
It's going to be violent.
Let's take a look at the next one, which is the IWGP Lumberjack Death match. Jon Moxley against EVIL. But like you said, Mox seems like a winner here, but this will be chock full of interference and shenanigans with the House of Torture and the third generation Shota Umino group opposing them. And this is the thing that we were talking about. And we're jumping ahead a little bit to the 10-point plan, because one of the 10-point plans was acknowledging that fans apparently around the world, not just in North America, are annoyed with the House of Torture stuff, and is signaled that there may be some things happening to curb this type of stuff. I think that what I got from Tanahashi's press conference was that New Japan understands that maybe they've gone a little bit too far with this, or maybe it's just simply run its course. I could see there being big changes in House of Torture in the way that it's handled, even in personnel. I mean, if EVIL loses this, does he get kicked out of the group? I don't think House of Torture is going to be in its current form at the end of this night. I think that this whole Avengers Assemble thing is not a small one-night deal. I think that this is the beginning of something different for HOT. That's just my thought on it. I could be totally wrong, but I'm reading tea leaves here that maybe New Japan understands that they might have swung that pendulum a little too far, and now it's time to bring it in a little. Don't you think?
I don't think it's going to be dismantled, but I think there will be a lot more of a de-emphasis before they like fully swing to like a teardown of the faction, because that's a little too abrupt and a little too like, let's destroy everything. But I definitely think that them in the main event scene, this is the last time we'll see the black spray paint for a while. Maybe we'll get a denouement with that and kind of shut down everything with the black spray paint on the titles, that kind of stuff. We're going to see a conclusion to all this. I do not expect EVIL in any way, shape, or form to be winning this title. Yeah. And I think that when we got the third generation guys coming out there, that told you all that you needed to know about the kind of crowd pleasing environment. We're going to get brawls throughout the arena. You know, maybe Moxley cuts his hair off a little bit like he did Great Kong a little while back. You know, just getting his piece of the guy, making the challenge of him. All of these things. This is going to be a wild brawl before we get into like a technical classic going into the main event. And you know what I say, what I think is going to happen afterwards. You know, we're going to get Moxley's going to win this match, right? Naito comes out, and then he challenges. We then go to Forbidden Door, and we get Blackpool Combat Club. We get Claudio, we get Yuta, we get Danielson, and we get Moxley, and then we get Naito, we get Yota Tsuji, we get Shingo, and we get Hiromu, and an 8-man tag, and everyone is happy with that glut of a card. And then that sets up Naito and Moxley going into New Japan Soul, where Moxley drops the title. Naito wins it back at G1, or just in time for the G1, and we are off to the races for the second half of New Japan. You cannot write it any better.
Okay. Colin mentions the refs need to be able to use the DQ more often. I'm going to come back to that during the 10-point plan talk, which is right around the corner, because I think that's something that's coming. If not the DQ option, something a little different. After that, we will have the Super Junior Finals, Taiji Ishimori, El Desperado. This could be an absolute classic, should be a real classic. I am sticking with my pre-tournament prediction that this is Desperado's year. It's finally Desperado's year to win it. And I think, again, we're talking about how we can elevate each guy, right? Well, the only way Desperado can elevate is to actually win the damn thing finally after coming this close. Ishimori, I think, can be helped by having a great match, losing, and then shaking Desperado's hand after. And then setting him off on the trajectory to be a babyface again. Maybe Bullet Club is a little bit offended by the sportsmanship thing. Or maybe he just
wins, Ishimori does the handshake, everybody, and that's the big moment.
Yeah, again, it's just one of those things where I think that can help both guys. And that would be the situation that I would go with on this one. If they want to give the win to Ishimori, I don't really have a problem with that either. The guy's fantastic.
I do a Bullet Club angle if Ishimori wins or if Ishimori loses. Like, you just leave it for Desperado's big, like, crowning moment. Is it a shocking ending?
I would end the show with the streamers and Desperado walking out with the. I would. Now you can do something to set up the invitational if you want to, or someone comes out and attacks him, and tease it if you want to. The way they did Naito, where he didn't get the. He did not get the roll call the first time. You could do that. You could have someone come out and set up something for the invitational if you wanted to. But the invitational is mystery vortex anyway. But you could. I would go with that because I think there's a catharsis in the crowd that really want to see Desperado finally get that moment. And we did get it with Naito at the Dome this past year. This might be the time for Despe and Osaka.
Yeah. I think the true winner of the Best of Super Juniors 31 at Dominion, Steven, going to be the fans.
It was us. Yeah. It almost restores your faith a little bit. Like, oh, wait.
You feel good about it. Like,
New Japan still knows how to do this. They just got to get
excited to come back here on Sunday and have the conversation. We're going to have a great conversation when we come back live to recap this show.
The matches were so great. It was booked so well. And I just think, okay, they still know how to do this. It's still there. It's still within them. And they just got to righten the ship a little bit. Speaking of how the New Japan can right the ship, there's a segue. God darn it all. I tell you what, I'm starting to look like I know what I'm doing. We will have the 10-point plan. Now, before we get to that, though, I do want to mention that All Together in Sapporo will be coming up. That's
I have a bunch of match cards that we can go through real quick before we get to the 10-point plan, and we'll just run through all of them, and you'll be very happy with me after this.
Okay, so you want to do the plan now, then, or do you want to do?
No, we'll just do the match cards, and then we'll end with the 10-point plan. So June 10th, the day after Dominion.
Yeah, there it is. June 10th, Korakuen Hall, Despe Invitational. It is $23 US money on your pay-per-view bill there but you can get it through NJPW World. It's available as a pay-per-view.
And you have to buy it through the browser. You cannot go onto World, buy it, and then do that. You have to go through one and then go through the other.
NJPW World, you disappoint us even when you're not trying. Next, they have the New Japan Seoul. So we have 2 matches announced thus far for it. Both of them title matches that are not being defended on Dominion. David Finlay's return. He has the global title. He'll be defending it against Sonata on that show. Of course, we mentioned a bit of paternity leave for Finlay.
Good for him. Happy. I'm very interested in this match. It feels like a match they've been trying to have for a very, very long time.
Yeah, well, Sonata coming back off of an illness, and thankfully he's fine and is ready to come back. And then we will get that junior heavyweight title match, Kosei Fujita and Robbie Eagles against the War Dogs, Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney, which will be a good match.
And that is the beginning of the tour. They have not announced any of the matches for the tour throughout.
Yeah, we'll keep you updated on all that. All Together, they added another match for All Together that I like. It beefs up the card a little bit and has some real star power on it. So Tanahashi is on the card with, of course, Naomichi Marufuji from Noah. That's always good news. And they'll be teaming with Kento Miyahara, who's probably the best guy in the world who's not in New Japan, against Sanada, Taichi, and Yuya Uemura. So, again, that has a lot of potential to be an excellent match and a nice little mix. And it gets some All Japan presence on a card that didn't have any. So this All Together card, almost all New Japan and Noah with some DDT sprinkled in. And this adds a little depth in that. Well, Stardom too, pardon me, because Azumi and Starlight Kid are on the show. But on the men's side anyway, it gets an All Japan presence on there, which was kind of a loud absence, in my opinion. That was just kind of it was very noticeable to me that there wasn't an All Japan thing presence on the show. And now we're getting Kento Miyahara, who's the top guy in the company. So good.
This is one of the best matches that they can offer. I'm not going to say the same about this next one.
Well, yes, and by the way, fair point here. I want to bring this up. Another issue with all this stuff. Colin mentions this. Collins in Scotland. He says, "I don't care about it all together until Alabama get a grip and make it available worldwide." Amen to that. Absolutely, it is absurd that that's not available all over the world when every other service is able to get pay-per-views all over the world. Just bad shit.
So we got Tomoya and Giant Panda versus Honma and Toru Yano. I'm just to get that out of the way while you keep talking these comments.
Dunstan just says, since Okada left, Kento is the current final boss in Japan, in my opinion. Boy, he's the guy, man. He's one of my dream guys for G1 someday before I die. I hope it happens. It won't be this year, but there you go. And then we will see Fujita, Zach, and Robbie Eagles against Hayata, Owada and Sasaki from the Noah group there. So should be pretty good.
So Jake Lee and Naito was already announced. So I'm just going to move on to
Yeah.
the CMLL matches that they have announced, including this magical piece of business.
June 24th at Arena Coliseo. So not Arena Mexico. I misspoke earlier. It is Arena Coliseo. So this is in a different place there. The good news is a lot of those Arena Coliseo shows kind of end up on their YouTube page. We might be able to see this one, Jeremy. I'm not sure. Maybe. But yeah, that's going to be Saturday, June 24th. So of course they do Friday night in Arena Mexico in Mexico City. This is Arena Coliseo. And this will be Hechicero against Zack Sabre Jr.
Fantastic.
We're also seeing Mystico and Taiji Ishimori. Mystico and Taiji Ishimori. So again, babyface Ishimori. These are all baby faces, by the way. They're wrestling against Hiromu Takahashi and Volador Jr. Volador, a babyface. Of course,
That's
Mystico,
going to
the
be such
ultimate
a fun match.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, and we got one more.
Rocky Romero and Angel de Oro. So that's an interesting one because I believe Angel de Oro is okay, there it is. It's a lightning match. So that means it's a short one. It's I believe they have 10-minute time limits. Relampago is lightning. Angel de Oro and Rocky Romero. Interesting because I believe both of those are Rudos in Japan. So I think Oro turned heel, is still heel, I think so.
This is going to be a fun card. I'm be looking forward to this one. This will be a week before Forbidden Door. So there'll be something to get your... And speaking of Forbidden Door, we got a couple of Stardom adjacent matches. And since Stardom is apparently a subsidiary of New Japan, I feel incumbent that we mention it.
Yeah, well, we have Toni Storm against Mina Shirakawa, which is the battle for Mariah May's heart between these two right there. And what's been a very bizarre...
I'm so mad at myself, Steven. I'm so mad at myself. There was an updated graphic to this.
Yeah.
That had Mariah May on the other side, and I forgot to.
Yeah, someone photoshopped Mariah May onto both sides of it.
It was a legitimate thing where Mariah May tweeted at Tony Khan and said, "I'd like to be on both sides of it," and both sides of the graphic, and it said okay, and then they updated the graphic with Mariah May legitimately on both sides.
Well, she's torn. I don't know what she's going to do. I think she might actually side with Shirakawa and do the feud with Tony eventually, right?
If it's the Owen Cup is coming, and if you're challenging at Wembley and Mariah May, we're not an AEW podcast. When we talk about Forbidden Door, which I will be doing a pay-per-view recap with Kevin Ely of the Boom after the show is over, we will talk all about it.
All right. Well, let's keep it going here because we've only got a few minutes left and we still have to cover these 10 points.
We can go long.
So we might be going over
things to talk about.
Yeah, we're going over Mercedes Moné and Stephanie Vaquer. So we were wondering what they were going to do. Here's the course correction. So it's Mercedes Moné, the TBS champion, in a title versus title match with Stephanie Vaquer for the NJPW Strong Women's title. There's no way on planet Earth Mercedes Moné is losing this match at Forbidden Door. So we're going to get back to the original idea, which is the NJPW Strong Women's Champion being Mercedes Moné. The good news is we're getting this match because it's going to be good. It was good the first time. It's going to be even better now. I think Vaquer is better than she was when this match originally happened, and certainly has traveled the world. And I think it's going to be terrific. But I do think that Moné is getting that belt back which was created for her in the first place.
I think it's starting to make a lot of sense why Tony Khan has waited all this time to get Moné started at Double or Nothing so that she could have a succession of big wins, winning titles against big opponents. Start Double or Nothing, win the TBS championship, I believe. And then now she likely going to win the New Japan Strong title. And then you can go to All In with 2 titles, and then she faces off against somebody and have a big statement win there. But I think it's now by design not to waste any time while she was wrestling to make her just come off and win and beat everyone and have all the belts.
Dunstan wants all the strong belts to go away. They're not going to. And in fact, they have a clearer plan.
Plans change, pal.
they have a clearer plan for them than they did before. So that goes into Tanahashi's press conference. So Tanahashi's been the president for 6 months. And he had a press conference with Kadani, a couple other guys, big wigs over there at Bushi Road. And he laid out 10 points for 10 steps for improving. And we're going to run them down one by one. So, Jeremy, the very first one, talent and discovery. And what Tanahashi said was there would be more chances for young talent to wrestle in prominent spots. That was the quote. And they asked him about G1. He said maybe, but he wants to make sure that people earn their spots in G1, but he wants to focus on wrestlers in their early and mid 20s. Okada, for instance, was the champion at 23. He also started when he was 16, so he had a bit of a quicker edge there. But that will mean fast forwarding the system a little bit, which might be healthy. One of the things about these guys start at the dojo at 18, they train for a couple of years, then they have a year, maybe even a little bit more as a young lion, then a couple of years sometimes on excursion. By the time they come back, they're in their mid to late 20s. It's time. It is time to move that timetable up a little bit. You're seeing it with Fujita. You're seeing it with some of these guys. They're ready. I don't know I think they were overdoing it a little bit and not bring them back until they're 25, 26. Bring them back 23, 24 would be a lot smarter to me. Those 2 years make a big difference.
I feel like we have missed the window to do this with the Reiwa. I think Fujita and his generation are the people that they're talking about that you could strap a rocket to. Like, if you look next year and Fujita won the best of Super Juniors, at this point, are you going to be shocked? No, not at all. You know, like, if the talent is there, there's no reason to hold back on elevating them very quickly, very fast, and just say, like, all right, the future of New Japan is in your hand. Are you responsible and ready for it? And some of these guys are going to be, and some of them are not, but you won't know until you give them the chance. But these guys are showing commitment already.
We're already seeing a big difference in the way they do their excursions, because Fujita never really went on one. They said he was going to Oceania, but he didn't. He's done a couple of shows over there, but not really. Oleg certainly not, and shouldn't. There's just no point, I don't think. And Oiwa just went next door to Noah and could come back. In fact, Dunstan, you asked a question: are there any surprises for Dominion? I think there could be an Oiwa presence if there was going to be a surprise, because I think Oiwa's coming back home sooner than later. He's already broken away from any groups. He left Keno and Kiyomiya's group, or refused their invitation, and then blew off the good-looking guys when they tried to extend an olive branch. So Oiwa's kind of made himself into a lone wolf, which means he could go back. And of course, with this, the way that Noah and New Japan work together, he can always still hit shows and bounce back and forth a little bit. But I think that he's on the way back, but he didn't have a traditional excursion. So I think that they're already moving toward fast forwarding that, even though Loibe and Murashima are in England, but
I would be very careful about expecting any new arrivals or returns when we are in a month of All Together and Forbidden Door and all these cross-platform things. No promotion wants to give the wrong idea of a person being here long-term or short-term, and it's just better to wait until after this month is over to do any big returns. If there's going to be an angle, it's going to be with the roster that's already there. They haven't done any video packages. They haven't done anything like that. I don't see a cold return of anybody, just given the landscape of New Japan this month or 2024 so far.
Okay. Well, that's, again, I just think that's something to keep an eye on there.
It's going to happen, but I just don't know if this is the month.
I think, and Oiwa announced he'll be in the N1. That's pretty interesting. So he'll be in the N1 tournament. Okay. Well, if that's the case, then maybe not in the G1, but it'd be nice to see him in there. But okay, now next point of emphasis will be the elevating. I mistyped that. Evaluating the value of titles. So this is something we've talked about on the show a lot. Tanahashi said we need to clarify their roles, and we've been calling for that for a while on this show. He said the strong titles will revert back to their original roles of being defended on American events. I think that's smart. I think that should just be the thing. They're going to be doing approximately monthly NJPW strong events. Those titles should be defended on those shows. That's what they were for. I mean, that's how it should be done. Kadani mentioned they've gone from 7 titles before the pandemic to 13. So almost doubled. They want to establish what they're for and why they matter. That he said that process should take place over the next 12 to 18 months. Because, of course, the first thing they said was, okay, well, you just told us this. This just came out of your face. And now you're combining the 2 tag team titles at Dominion. So what are you talking about? And they just said, well, it is a process, and they're going to be working toward that very thing. So we mentioned that King of Pro Wrestling can be defined by the personality of the person holding the title.
Mm-hmm.
The Never Openweight can, and they didn't define this at the press conference. They're saying that Never Openweight can be the BMF title, so those matches look different. TV title, more of a sprint thing, the New Japan's version of the high-speed belt. As long as they have a different function, I'm okay with it. The one that's kind of lost in the mix here is, what is the global title? Is it essentially the Intercontinental again?
Mm-hmm.
Fine, but define it as that. Define it as the workhorse belt if you want to. You know, that as long as they are each doing something different, I'm okay with having them. And then have the strong titles over back in the United States, just so they aren't cluttering things up.
Right.
And so, you know, that if the Japanese titles are on the Japanese shows and the strong titles are on the American shows, then it doesn't feel like we have a prelim match with a young lion and then 7 title matches, which just starts to feel like, you know, like when all the territories went away and like everything was on Jim Crockett Promotions, every match was a title match on this. Like, watch the early Starcades, like 85 and all that. They're all title matches because they had all these belts laying around until they
have so many belts that they are not able to defend all of them on Wrestle Kingdom. I don't remember the last time the Never Openweight title, Never 6-man titles were defended on Wrestle Kingdom. They haven't been defended in the last couple of years. There's just not room for these belts. I like the idea of the strong titles being only U.S. titles, especially with, you know, the C2 and that being part of the Triple Crown over there. Like, just keep it stateside. Totally fine. The global title feels just like the Intercontinental title. As much as they want to tell you it's like at the same level as the IWGP title, it's not. And it's never going to be. And that's fine. But you got the Never title, you got the TV title. God, you got... I can't even think of any other titles. The junior heavyweight title, tag titles, 3 different sets of tag titles. It's a lot. And I can't keep track of it sometimes. And it's like Shingo as the Never Openweight title, for example, as the champion. It's doing nothing for him. It can do something for HENARE. You know, it can elevate him because the belt is at a certain level. And HENARE is below that level, and he can exceed it by having that title. But Shingo is keeping that title at a certain level. He's keeping it warm for people who are lesser than him, but he needs to be in a main event title. So, you know, it's like the evaluations they have for the titles are super wacky, and they need to reset the expectations and the levels of what they use these titles for. So good on them.
And to me, Jeremy, I like you mentioned Shingo feels more like at this stage in his career a world heavyweight title contender or a global champion. That's a possibility for him. You know, that's anyway. By the way, Dunstan mentioned one thing about the young talent. He said if they want to scout young talent, New Japan should go back and look at the UK and New Zealand. The Velocities, Luke Jacobs have expressed interest in working with Japan. There is some untapped talent there that isn't being soaked up by AEW and WWE. So yes, I agree with you, Dunstan. I think those would be good places to look right there. So remember, again, we're talking about you can't really compete money-wise with them. So what you have to do are find the hidden gems that they're not taking. And that's one way of doing it. Let's see. Okay, what's next? We talked about the belts. So outside interference. Now this is the House of Torture segment. So what
we're going long, folks.
So he has said that interference is something that stood out in recent months. And I think this is a thing where they're reading the vote, the online vote regarding the main event of Dominion, and reading the room, taking the temperature of the Japanese fans as well as American ones, that this has maybe gone on a little bit either too long or a little too far. Tanahashi has said he might get physically involved in Dominion, but fans will notice a difference either way. That's why I said what I said about House of Torture. He said, whether I get physically involved or not, fans will notice a difference either way at Dominion. And that's why I thought that change was coming, and it has irritated the fans. And, you know, Colin mentioned, should they give the referees more DQ power, or not DQ power? They have the power. You can do anything you want. It's not a real thing. It's a show. But should they use it more and think? I just, more than that, my issue with the House of Torture has always been that, you know, it's not something they do well. Stuff happens right in front of the ref, or why in the world isn't it when they literally grab the ref and yank him out of the ring for a finish? It's just bad shit crazy that that's not a DQ. And what it does is it not just makes the officials, but more importantly, it makes a lot of the baby faces look stupid. And like Dick Togo ringing the bell when he's staring at the referee with a submission on. Why in the world would you let go? You are looking at the referee, not stopping the match. And this has happened 6 times. So my issue is, they just don't make the babyface look dumb. The heel can outwit the babyface sometimes by sinking lower than even the babyface thought they would. That's okay. But when you make the babyface look dumb, it annoys the fans a lot. And I think that's happened more than it needs to in New Japan lately. I'm hoping that they recognize that and are starting to turn that around. That's my hope from what I got from this point of the 10 points. What do you think?
This was the first of the 10 points where it's like, oh no, this is a reactive press conference to all the negative feedback that they've been experiencing, not an outwardly like, let's be proactive about the things that we need to do. We are responding to the criticisms instead. And those are two things. Those are two completely different things. It made me nervous for the rest of this thing and gave me an uneasy feeling. Kind of the company version of Bullet Club is fine. Like just the whole thing. We all know this outside interference needed to be curbed a while ago. If you're going in a press conference and listing a 10-point plan and saying, yeah, we get it. We've gone back to the well on this like 1,000 too many times and we're going to fix it. Like that does not institute the confidence that you want in the company. It gives you confidence that they're heading in the right direction, but it does not give you confidence that they are where they need to be right now. So there is a good to this and there is bad to it. And this was the first one where I was like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to feel about the rest of this 10-point plan. But on the whole, I think that these are good steps and they're taking the right direction. But this was the first one where I was like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about it right now.
Number 4 was increasing the prominence of Hantai. And he just said that, the idea of a group built on sportsmanship and fair play should have a more, that's a little bit in kayfabe. What he was basically saying is we need to build the pure babyface faction. Nothing really wrong with that. No. That's one thing that has kind of faded out is Hantai and Chaos are both kind of floating off into space right now. And they need to do some things to shore that up. I agree. I don't know what that'll be, but if they want to have Hantai part of it, the banishing or the next step of curbing House of Torture, that would probably go a long way toward that goal of making Hantai a little bit more respectable and having guys come back and joining Hantai, which looks like not too many of them do. Although looks like Shota Umino kind of has, but I nothing wrong with just having a pure babyface faction and building it up.
Kanata looks more like the pure babyface leader of Hantai at this point than anyone else on the roster, but he's got like this just 5 guy faction. So they really need to reset a lot of these factions and who, what, where, why, when. What is Hantai's identity? What is Chaos's identity? Should they
I think Shooter is as pure a babyface as they got right now, Tim.
Sure, but he's what, Hantai? Or is he?
Well, that's my point. I mean, maybe he needs to declare.
Right. So, like, everything is a muddled mess. Chaos is 3 people that are healthy right now. Hantai is everyone that is not affiliated with anybody else rather than like affiliating with Hantai. So it's just, I get what he's saying. I don't know how they're going to go about to do so.
Yeah. I think you just barely ever hear anybody refer to Hantai or Chaos anymore. They just need to define it. After that, he said strengthening ties with Stardom. It'll be a fully owned subsidiary by the end of June with improved scheduling, cross-promotion, Stardom wrestlers in New Japan. And there will be, before the end of the year, he didn't give a date, a crossover event. I can imagine
the one that was supposed to happen last year?
Yes. I can imagine them making it more about NJPW women as they try to move away from things that are associated with Rossi Ogawa. Perhaps like the names of the titles, for instance, that was a very Rossi thing. So I can see them doing things to kind of get more of a brand thing on it. Not that I don't think they're going to just end Stardom and just say this is now New Japan Women, but I can see some maybe change the belts and move things away from stuff that was associated with Rossi Ogawa.
Sure. Yeah, Like they have to recreate an identity that is away from both Marigold and putting them more with Stardom or Roxy and Marigold. Stardom needs to identify that, and having them tied with New Japan a little bit more is probably better for their identity at this regenesis for the promotion.
Colin has a suggestion. Do what Stardom used to do. Have a faction battle royal. That'll determine it. That'll shake it all out. But, maybe they should. After that, they said strengthen AEW ties. We've officially reached the cringe department, Jeremy. They said, but this is where they said, we are not a feeder system for AEW. And how dare you suggest we are equal partners, which is something that they have to say. But I'm not going to go. What else are they going to say? Are they like, yes, we've taken an ass whooping here? I mean, what else are they going to say? So this was a lot of lip service here. But
I was on the Discord for the Fight Game Media today, and Garrett Gonzalez asked me what New Japan has legitimately got out of this arrangement. And the best thing that I can get out of it is that New Japan has managed to keep its operating costs down for the majority of the year. And save for the big events throughout the year, they've been able to take top talent from AEW and use them for their big shows and make money on the big shows.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Moxley is a draw, and I'm gonna get back to the point.
Danielson is a draw as well.
Yeah, but having Moxley as a champion, I don't think is bad. He's over in Japan. No. He's over with the New Japan fans, and I do think that works. So
even for the arrangement, even though yes, there are people like Okada, and we are sad that he's gone. Okada did not want to stay, and it is best of New Japan to let him go with open arms rather than force him to stick around or do something that makes it so that it is an untenable bad relationship and New Japan looks bad in the future. So is it a feeder system? I don't know. I just think New Japan and AEW have a relationship where it is very easy for AEW to cultivate relationships with wrestlers that they are very interested in cultivating. And that pipeline is very interesting. But I do think that New Japan can exist without AEW, but having a relationship with AEW helps them on big events for big tickets and viewing purchases for a portion of the year that helps them stabilize the business as they regrow their homegrown area. I think there are things that they can get out of it, but I do think that AEW is the majority of the benefactor of this relationship.
They also mentioned that other departments within Bushiroad can be involved with AEW. And what I got out of that was perhaps the collectible card game industry, which Bushiroad is a big deal in Japan. That could be tied in. Of course, they also do video games, but AEW already has a video game contract. Right. So I could see them working their way in. I mean, it's a toy and game company, so there might be ways to tie in things there where Bushiroad can license AEW to do some things there and do some business in that direction. They did mention that it doesn't all have to be the pro wrestling company that works with AEW. Right. It's Bushiroad as a whole. Improving the live experience. So that is, he mentioned adjusting pricing, ticket tiers, different ticket tiers being available, tiers with bonuses, maybe like the keep your seat type of thing, special food menus, and ladies sections putting as well. That's something that is a bigger deal than you would think in Japan. Women feel often, this is generalization and things, but a lot of concerts, a lot of shows have ladies sections there where women sometimes just feel more, and they have ladies only cars on trains sometimes, and because they just feel a little bit more comfortable, and it can get a little notoriously crowded trains can get a little uncomfortable for women in there, and so they mentioned that maybe putting either 2 or 4 in a box at Sumo Hall. I was encouraged by this part of it here, Jeremy. One of the things that the instincts that companies have sometimes when attendance is down is to drop ticket prices because they think that maybe we're too expensive. But in wrestling history, just talking about, and concerts for that matter, it usually has the opposite effect. When WCW tried that, they lowered ticket prices and attendance dropped. WWF went the other way. So, where like the first 3 rows were a premium, and then the rest of the floor was a second tier, and then the rest of the arena a third tier. And what they found was the first tickets that sold were always the most expensive ones. So then they, instead of making it the first 3 rows, let's make it the first 5 rows. And then those sold. And they said, well, let's make it the whole floor. And then those vanished. Like people, it's inflexible that way. It's a weird thing. So discounting rarely works. So the fact that they were looking at that and just saying, instead of dropping ticket prices, maybe giving people something a little more, whether it's a souvenir or like you said, a food special, or putting them in women in a section where they might feel more comfortable being in a crowded hall. I thought, okay, that's some solid thinking along with live entertainment experience there, because dropping prices usually has the opposite effect.
I'm very interested in improving the live fan experience. I don't know how that means for stateside, because as you know, I go to plenty of live fan experiences here in the States, and I'm about to go one at a high school gymnasium for CMLL Fantasticamania over at Mount Pleasant High School, 4 miles from my house. So, I'm all about the live fan experience. It is a very bare bones experience when you are there. Like when you were watching a New Japan World show at Korakuen Hall or elsewhere, and you're at a stateside show, it's not a whole lot of difference between what you're getting here and what you were getting there. So there is a very much a sense of an authentic New Japan experience when you are going to, say, a show in Texas, or you're going to a show in California, or you're going to a show in Chicago or DC, depending on whether it's a big show or a small show. The atmosphere is very, very similar to what you're getting at a big show or a small show in Japan. So if you're wondering what the fan experience is, you have experienced it if you've gone to a live show.
Yeah. So, but I think these are some smart ideas. I hope they implement them and see how they go. After that, improving NJPW World. Oh my God. So I'm going to bring up Colin's thing here. He said, I agree with his points except 6 and 8. He says, right now, New Japan is AEW's feeder promotion. We addressed that a little bit earlier. And point 8, fix the goddamn world site. Sorry about the caps. No, don't apologize, Colin. We're as pissed off as this as you are. I have a few things to say about their digital presence out here. So, first of all, they apologized, and they admitted that it brought more issues than anticipated. Yeah, no crap. It's garbage. It switched from something that was at least useful, but they felt it was dated. I didn't think it was that bad, actually. Into this new version of NJPW World, they say that the live shows are better with the time thing. I don't watch a lot of New Japan live. I usually watch it when I wake up in the morning, that type of thing. But when I have watched it live, it has worked. That's all fine. But he says that better archives and better search functionalities will be here within the calendar year. So not within a year now, but in calendar 2023, that they will have better archives and better search functionality. That's my biggest peeve about the whole thing, is that it's clunky. It's hard to find stuff. And the archives, there's less on it than there used to be as far as the archives go. This is worrisome to me, Jeremy. They had the botched transition to NJPW World. Mm-hmm. They were keeping personal info on a flash drive, which they lost.
That was amazing.
They had the ongoing issue. The website still looks like it's GeoCities, for God's sakes. And that's
got medium.com, actually. It's medium.com.
Weeks and weeks it's been since that site looked like anything other than rinky-dink. And it's just not good.
It was about 14 things down on the work ticket for the site host.
Bushiroad should be able to do better than this. Yes. Flat out, a company that size should be able to have an online presence that is much, much better than this. It's frustrating. World has been crap since they changed it. The personal info, thankfully, it wasn't addresses or anything like that, but the website's an embarrassment. And the fact that it's taken this long to even get it into working order, I mean, what is going on over there?
I would prefer an option to be able to watch a show in one full loop, press the button and start the show.
Right. Where is it? Colin had it up. You had it up there a little bit ago. But yes,
I would prefer that with a timestamp of how long the entire show is. Yeah. That's actually really, really important for me when trying to plan out when I'm going to watch all these shows. Because psychologically, when I'm going through and I see that I have 10 matches to watch, right? And I can watch 5 here and 4 tomorrow. It's actually a lot harder, and it takes a lot more time if you split up all those shows and you just want to watch a show, sit down, grab and go. So,
I have another thing.
I don't hate World. I really don't. I don't hate the World. I go in there and I watch the new shows. I don't go back and I watch the archives almost never. I don't watch any of the ancillary stuff. I know how to get a pay-per-view. Like I just don't have time for it. So as long as they can provide me with the new live content and just present it where I can just like, oh, hey, turn on the show and go. Start from the beginning, I would really appreciate that.
Well, I'm asking for a little bit more because I do love the archives, and I am a history guy, and I do want those back the way that they had been, and even more if they can get it. But the other thing that just frustrates me is a couple of different times now when they have edited these shows where they put the little breaks between the matches. More than once, they have put a video up that made an announcement during the live show, right, where it goes dark between matches and the little video screen comes up where they announce the dates for the Super Juniors and all that stuff. When they go through and splice it up into match 1, match 2, match 3, and you get that little pause, they cut the goddamn video out. And so I have to go and find that on the New Japan Twitter feed or whatever the hell. And guys, what are you doing? It's very frustrating. And it's a company that should know better, and they should be better at this. I mean, this company does video games. This company has an online presence. They do mobile apps. They do all of these things. How are they this bad at their digital services? It's very baffling to me.
I mean, they lost the USB stick of personal data. The digital technology,
Yeah, and Dunstan just said there's no excuse for them when Wrestle Universe exists. Yeah, boy, they're kind of being shown up by that. Not kind of, they're being shown up by it. So let's talk about the number 9, the improved treatment of personal info. This info does not seem to have been used, they said. This is my theory. It's a USB drive that fell out during a show at Korakuen Hall. Yeah, one of 3 things happened. Somebody picked it up and tossed it out. Somebody accidentally kicked it underneath a bleacher, will remain forevermore. Or my theory is that some fan snatched it up and just thought, I've got the booking for the G1. It's right on here. And then they plug it in and say, shit, it's a spreadsheet. And then pitch the thing. Because it doesn't appear to have been used in any nefarious way anyway. But the fact that they had it all on, God, geez, how rinky-dink can you get? It's on a USB drive laying around.
Self-inflicted wound, right?
Oh my Lord! What a deal! And then the last thing with sponsorships, of course, LEC is going to be leaving the New Japan sponsorship, but they said that they're okay on that. And of course, they still have Yoshinoya, which is one of the biggest companies in Japan. They have a lot of sponsorship there, but they are said to be that LEC cleaning products will be leaving.
So let's recap. We had 10 topics. Talent discovery and development, elevating the value of the title belts, reducing outside elimination, increasing the status of Hontai, strengthening Stardom, AEW strength, the live fan experience, New Japan World woes, the USB incident, and all the sponsorships that are leaving. Everything is fine.
There you go.
Woo.
Only one big sponsor,
way, right?
Only one big sponsor is leaving, and they still have a monster in Yoshinoya. I mean, that's seriously like McDonald's or Subway in Japan. They're every 20 yards, and they're pretty good. But that's a major sponsorship. They still have that. So just the fact that LEC is cutting back doesn't really mean that anything other than that.
I do have one last message before we go on one last graphic that I think really underscores the mentality that we have before we go into Dominion. Are you ready for this one?
Fire away. Yes. So for the people on the podcast, he has put up a little thing, a screen grab, I guess, or a still from a video Chris Charlton did where he kind of walked us through in very British pantomime action of going to Korakuen Hall and experiencing Korakuen Hall. And he's got the big thumbs up with the exaggerated face and the wink as he sits in the orange seats. And I cracked up when I saw that as well.
Got to cut the crowd out happy. We were a little critical, of this 10-point plan, or I was at least a little critical of this 10-point press conference. But we got a great show with Dominion. We got the Death Bay Invitational. We got New Japan Soul. We got a potential couple really good matches coming for Forbidden Door. It is a fun time to be a fan of New Japan, even though, it feels like the sky may be falling at any given point.
Make sure you join us on Sunday. We'll be back at our regular time right here. So 5:30 p.m. at the same time that the show started today, wherever you are. And make sure that you join us as we break down that big Dominion show. We'll take a look at what we saw at Osaka-jo Hall. My last question for you, Jeremy, before we sign off for this thing. Last year, they got about 7,000 for the Sonata title match. Okay?
More.
And it was in Osaka-jo Hall. Are you taking the over or the under for this year's show?
Over.
You think they're getting 8,000? Where are you coming in?
I don't think it can be a huge increase over last year, but I think it'll be a bigger increase than last year. I think this is a much more traditional New Japan card. I think they've done enough with the Generation 3. I think the turnout at the last Korakuen Hall show has given me the belief that this is going to be a very strong turnout for this show.
So just to give you an idea, in very briefly, in 2022, they were just over 6,000, 6,068 for Okada versus Jay White. At June 4th, 2023, they were just over 7,000, 7,040. That's according to the Wikipedia and New Japan attendance pages. So it's gone from 6,000, 7,000. If they get 8,000, I'll be very pleased, and I think they're on the right path there. 6, 7, 8, nothing wrong with increasing 1,000 a year. If they go above that, I think that's gravy. But I think I'm guessing. I think 7,500 to 8,000 somewhere in there is probably more realistic, but I don't have any inside info on that. But.
Look, they don't have the star power they have, but when you look back at those main events from the last couple of years, those weren't exactly blow the doors off the barn.
Okada White was pretty good. Okada White was a pretty good.
It was, but it wasn't. How many times had we seen it up to that point?
Yeah, and last year was Sonata versus Yota Tsuji, and people weren't sure what we were getting with Tsuji.
Which was a great, a lot of people wanted Yota Tsuji to win, but Sonata was unproven, and Yota Tsuji was right out the gate. So we have a much more established. You got Desperado and Ishimori who have been there. With the Korakuen Hall turnout. You got Moxley and EVIL. You have a strong card down the whole thing. I think this show is going to do very well.
We will find out on Sunday morning, our time, Sunday in Japan there at Osaka-jo Hall, and we will be back here at 5:30 p.m. Eastern to go over all of it. So with that in mind, I want to say thank you to everybody who watched us live and to everybody who listens to us as a podcast later. We're very grateful you spent your time with us. For Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. This has been Speaking of Strong Style, and we will talk to you again real soon.
Bye.